سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala barakatuh. This is Zaynab Ansari here, and it is my great pleasure to welcome our esteemed audience members and our respected mashayikh to a special program. This program is a joint effort of Jannah Institute and Tayseer Seminary, and this is Sunday, July 3rd. And I know we probably have a global audience, but it's Sunday, July 3rd. It is 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. And for international guests, inshallah ta'ala, I will be introducing the program and kind of giving a bit of historical context about why this topic is so important. So welcome wherever you're joining us from. We are delighted to have all of you with us tonight and from whatever time zone that you're joining us from. My name is Zaynab Ansari, and I am one of the faculty members at Tayseer Seminary, which is based in Knoxville in East Tennessee in the United States. And the delightful program and speakers that we have tonight really kind of represent the leading voices in Islamic scholarship. And I'm just so happy to have this panel that we've convened. And I do want to mention, inshallah, just kind of by way of kind of an announcement for everybody here. The subject that we're discussing tonight is intended for mature listeners only. So I would really advise that if there are children here, if there are younger folks, that parents be advised that this is intended, again, for a mature listening audience. Now, for those of you in the United States, you obviously understand the importance of this historical moment. You know that we are really experiencing a time within the context of the United States where society is incredibly polarized. I mean, this idea of red states and blue states is something that is really getting to be a very kind of firm dividing line within the United States, where literally people are beginning to kind of self-aggregate around the political views that they hold. And really at the center of the so-called culture wars is this idea of reproductive autonomy, abortion, pro-life, pro-choice. So what I'm going to do, inshallah ta'ala, before I hand it over to our esteemed mashayikh and introduce them, I just want to give everybody a sense of why we are having this conversation tonight. So on Friday, June 24, just last week, the Supreme Court of the United States of America overturned the 1973 landmark decision entitled Roe versus Wade, and a 78-page opinion authored by Justice Samuel Alito. Alito was joined by the conservative majority, Clarence Thomas, Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett. And in this 78-page ruling, Alito opined that the 1973 landmark case Roe v. Wade was egregiously wrong and must be overruled, essentially arguing, my dear listeners, dear sisters, dear brothers, essentially arguing that the United States Constitution does not give women the right to seek an abortion. Now, what happened was, again, this tension that really is kind of being manifest in society sort of writ large is being manifested in the court itself. I mean, the opinion was leaked about a month ago, and Chief Justice John Roberts, who was appointed by George W. Bush, his kind of incremental, gradual approach to effecting change on the Supreme Court was completely undercut by the majority opinion. So what John Roberts did was he issued a concurrent opinion, basically expressing reservations over the very sweeping, broad nature of the majority ruling, calling it a serious jolt to the legal system. And in his concurrent decision, he expressed the preference that he would have just really kind of limited the conversation around abortion to upholding this Mississippi law that was really the case they were deciding, which would ban abortion after 15 weeks. Again, calling the majority opinion a serious jolt to the legal system. So the dissenting opinion was authored by the three liberal justices on the Supreme Court: Elena Kagan, Sonia Sotomayor, and Stephen Breyer. And Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, obviously not having been sworn in when this case was brought before the court. So the dissenting opinion by Justices Kagan, Sotomayor, and Breyer expressed dismay. And one of the things that they wrote was that young women, and I'm quoting, "young women today will come of age with fewer rights than their mothers and grandmothers." That from the very moment of fertilization, what they are saying is that from the very moment of fertilization, a woman has now no rights to speak of. That a state can force her to bring a pregnancy to term, even at the steepest personal familial costs. So we have a Supreme Court that has brought this ruling, with the dissenting opinion expressing a lot of dismay. And I believe with NPR finding today, National Public Radio finding today, that while it does appear as if the conservative views on this subject from the Supreme Court juridical standpoint are sort of an ascendancy, that this is not really reflecting the culture at large. So the reason why I wanted to convene this discussion tonight, my dear listeners, is because the Muslim, I don't want to say the Muslim voices if there's a singular Muslim voice, but I really believe that Muslim voices that carry scholarly authority are really missing from this debate. The Washington Post put out a piece last week where they brought stories of young Muslim women who've sought out abortions, essentially arguing that the Islamic position on this is a position of mercy and allowance. But what I really want to do with the discussion tonight, inshallah ta'ala, is learn from our esteemed scholars to understand what perhaps is the nuance that exists within Islamic tradition when it comes to the topic of reproductive freedom or abortions. Now, of course, we all have access to social media, so I do want to note that there have been prominent scholars, male scholars, who've said we should celebrate this overturning of Roe v. Wade, that as a Muslim community we ought to join forces with the Christian right and really kind of get behind the overturning of Roe v. Wade. And there have been some dissenting opinions, if you will, and also some opinions coming from more progressive or feminist Muslim scholars as well. So those views are out there, and I want to acknowledge them. But what I want to really emphasize for tonight is that our esteemed speakers, Dr. Sheikha Haifaa Younis and Dr. Sheikh Hassan Lachheb, represent a traditional scholarship, but also a great deal of insight into the concerns of modern day Muslims. One final thing, in addition to ensuring that you don't have very young listeners for this program, because again, this is a mature subject, I also want to request, because I know that we're being joined by audience members from all over via Facebook and YouTube, live platforms. I would imagine questions are probably already coming in or about to come in. So I would really like to, not just suggest, but I'm going to insist that comments be kept relevant, questions be succinct, and that we respect the scholarship of our teachers and manifest the best adab, or the best of Islamic etiquette. All right, so with that, it is my great pleasure to introduce our first speaker tonight, Sheikha Dr. Haifaa Younis, who is a board-certified OBGYN, and she is the founder of Jannah Institute. And, for people that know me, I tend not to kind of read out bios. What I really want to say is that you really know the caliber of the scholar from their work, from their students, and from the personal impact that they have on your life. And when I think about Sheikha Haifaa, I think about a teacher, I think about a mentor, I think about a spiritual mother of all of us. And I think about someone that literally welcomed me and my children into her home without really knowing a lot about us, letting us play with her cats, benefiting from her suhbah, her amazing companionship. But the reason why I wanted her to be our first speaker is that she brings together the best of both worlds. Again, traditional ulum shar'iyya, Islamic studies, and she is a board-certified OBGYN. So, ahlan wa sahlan, welcome, dearest Dr. Haifaa. We are honored. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Jazakallah khair. Sheikha Zaynab, I don't deserve all this. May Allah make me better than what people think of me and forgive what they don't know about me. It's a pleasure. Sheikha Zaynab has a special place in my heart. Before, she was my guest and we spent beautiful time, and even now, even more, she knows that. She's also one of our, walillah alhamd, gonna be our guest teacher this year for the whole year program in Jannah Institute, the Year of Knowledge. May Allah reward you. We wanted more from her, but I do understand how difficult this is. So alhamdulillah, it's a pleasure and it's an honor. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I always say this, make me speak what pleases him. And this is the most important thing. And I'm going to ask everybody on the chat, this is a very polarized, sensitive topic. And there is no right and wrong if we don't look at it through the lens of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we're going to look through which state I live, and I'm addressing especially my beautiful audience from the United States, because if you're outside the United States, you don't feel what we are feeling. So don't look at it from the view of which state you live, or I am a woman, or I am a man, or I am a Democrat, or I'm a Republican. I want you to look at it from only one lens, and it's the lens of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is how we will become fair. And this is how when we speak and when we give an opinion, it is not my opinion or your opinion or the judge's opinion or the political leader opinion. It is Allah's opinion. So this is extremely important, and especially when you write a comment. Let's all, as she beautifully said, Sheikh Zaynab, let's use Islamic etiquette. Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam never ever accused anyone, called anyone names, and labeled people. Let's stop doing this. Let's all open our hearts and let's see, what does Allah want us to know? That He put us in this day and age, that we lived this. Majority of us were not there when the Roe versus Wade came up. And I actually looked up the case completely, and I wanted to see what is this. And the Roe is actually not the real name of the woman. It was actually in Texas. It's a woman. Her name is not Roe. They gave her a Roe just because of a nickname. And it was two lawyers, females, who wanted to look at the abortion debate. The question is, and this is what we need to start with, what does Allah says about this? And what does Islam say about this as Muslims? And then I'm going to bring medicine, but I'm not going to speak as a physician. I'm going to speak as a Muslim physician. We all need to not forget our identity. It may be with this political view or the other view, but this is not my point. My point, my opinion is Allah's opinion, what He taught me, and through the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam, of course, through the Quran, through Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam, and through the scholars. So what is abortion to start with? A choice, a woman's choice. I have a choice in my body. I don't have a choice. The politician has to decide for me. Abortion in general, it depends which part of the world you live. The word has different meaning. If you live in England, abortion means a woman who's going to lose the pregnancy, intentionally or unintentionally. If you live in the United States, abortion means abortion, termination of pregnancy. The woman, for whatever the reason, decided to not continue with this pregnancy, not spontaneous. Spontaneous in the United States is called miscarriage. So you all have to be very careful when you use this word. For all the beautiful viewers, may Allah reward all of you, that when you use this word in public, miscarriage means the woman lost the baby unintentionally, absolutely not a choice. She just lost the pregnancy. Abortion, it means she was part of the decision to terminate the pregnancy. So that's number one. Now, the main debate, what does Islam says about it? Are we pro or pro? As Sheikh Zaynab beautifully said it. Are we pro-life or we are pro-abortion? Number one, as Muslims, that you all have to remember that Islam came in to save 5 things, to protect 5 things. And the first one is life. Life, the deen, the religion. So they call it nafs, life, the religion, and then aql, the intellect, and then the honor, al-ird, and then the wealth. All what they call maqasid al-sharia, all what Islam rulings comes is to protect these 5. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says do that, that means these are protected. Or when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said don't do that, that's these 5 are protected. This is the sphere we all Muslim have to look at. Unfortunately, some of us don't know this, not explained, not taught, but you always have to come with this yaqeen inside you, that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put a ruling to do or not to do, it's absolutely beneficial for me. ويحل لكم الطيبات وحرم عليكم الخبائث. Allah in general, everything is good for me is halal, and everything that is not good for me is haram. I have to come in every debate, in every question, even the debate inside me. I do it or I don't do it, but that doesn't make sense. That's hard. I have to remember this basic principle. Everything Allah said do is good for me. And Allah said don't do, That's not good for me. What did Allah says about the abortion? That's the question. In the Quran, what we see the sanctuary of life. Life is absolutely sanctuary for Muslims. Here we are with if you want to use the word, we agree with the conservative. We are pro-life because that's what Allah said, not because we have this political opinion, right? In the end of Surah Al-An'am, قُلْ تَعَالَوْا أَتْلُوا مَا حَرَّمَ رَبُّكُمْ عَلَيْكُمْ. Come on in. Come, let me tell you what Allah made unlawful for you. إِلَّا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا. Do not associate. بِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. And then he goes, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا النَّفْسَ الَّتِي حَرَّمَ اللَّهُ. Do not kill the nafs, the life, the soul that Allah made it sacred, except certain reasons. إلا ما ولا تقتلوا النفس التي حرم الله إلا بالحق. حق here is truth, meaning there is a reason. So I come to this debate as a Muslim woman with what Allah number one taught me, that nafs is absolutely sanctuary. It's Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam, the meaning of, he was doing tawaf around Kaaba. This is the time of Hajj. And he said the Muslim life, the Muslim blood is more sanctuary than this Kaaba, this house, that this place, that this month. So I am pro-life as a Muslim. But Islam does not have extremism. There is no either or. There is always reasons for doing things, changing the rulings. As they say, لِكُلِّ مَقَامٍ مَقَالٍ. Every situation has a certain statement. I can't come and say, absolutely, there is no miscarriage. There's no abortion, period. And I can't come and say, you know what? It's the woman's choice completely, and she can decide. As a Muslim woman, no, there's a frame. And the frame is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. As physicians, the question, the debate, which also the fuqaha has the same debate, is when does the baby become a human being, a small tiny one inside the uterus? I'm going to try to avoid using medical terms. We have fetus, and we have fetus, and we have an embryo, and we have a fetus. Embryo is the first 8 weeks of pregnancy. And then fetus is still the baby delivered and then becomes an infant. When in this 40 weeks of pregnancy, when does the baby alive? Islamically, when does the soul is being breathed into that? That's where the debate. Because we as Muslims, once the life is being breathed inside the fetus or the embryo, then terminating that pregnancy has to be really looked at carefully. Again, I'm not going to say no at all. I'm going to say carefully, because now I have to balance the sanctuary of life of that unborn human being and the benefits why I am thinking. So it's always balance. نحن أمة وسطة. This is what I want all our viewers to remember. We are a nation. Allah created us. وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا. Allah said this in Surah Al-Baqarah. And therefore, and this is how we made you a nation of balance. Balance. We are not this or we are that. The balance comes in. I have 2 lives now. Which one is more important? Islam agree, everybody agree, that when the life of the mother is in danger, if we continue the pregnancy, then you terminate the pregnancy, and there is no question about it, provided 3 Muslim physicians attest that this is a life-threatening condition. And again, without going through medical details, but yes, there is certain cardiac conditions where the woman absolutely will die. Of course, we don't know for sure, but the possibility of death is very high. Then the life of the mother comes first, and you terminate the pregnancy. So here you go. Now, when you come into the mother is not in danger, is it absolutely not allowed at all, or is it allowed? So all of you, I want you to analyze it, move emotions out, look through the lens of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam, what he taught me and you, and what the jurists say. And I'm sure Sheikh Hassan will probably elaborate more than me on this point. So if the mother life is in danger, agreed upon by 3 Muslim physicians, or if there is no Muslim physicians, qualified physicians, that if she continue, I have seen it. Absolutely. I have seen it. The mother will die. There's no question about it. Then terminating the pregnancy is actually, in Islam, is almost an obligation, because you need to save the life of the mother. And the life of the mother supersedes the life that is not born yet. Now remove that part. And now you come and say, what about the rest? What about the woman doesn't want the pregnancy? Here we come the debate. First question, how far she is. Because in the hadith of Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam, which I'm sure again Sheikh Hassan is going to comment in it, this is the most frequent hadith, is brought up in this debate. It's in al-Bukhari, narrated by Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, where Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam commented on إن أحدكم ليجمع في بطن أخيه 40 يوم نطفة. Us, all of us are, and he mentioned the stages of creation. Subhanallah. The stages of creation that we studied in embryology as a physician. He mentioned it, alayhi salatu wasalam, more than 1400 years ago. That we all are created. Number one, we come from nutfa, spoiled water, which is the sperm and the egg. Egg is from the woman and the sperm from the man. They meet and then pregnancy starts. This is usually by about 6 days after intercourse, after the intimate relationship. This is formed now, we call it zygote, which means the sperm entered the egg and then moves through the fallopian tube, comes in the uterus. Subhanalladhi la illahu, it's going to attach to the wall of the uterus, and this becomes us after 9 months. So here, nutfa and nutfa both came together, right? And Allah said this in detail in Surah Al-Mu'minun. يا أيها الناس إن كنتم في ريب من البعث فإنا خلقناكم. People, are you in doubt that you will be resurrected? Well, look at how you were created. فإنا, verily we, خلقناكم, created you from نطفة, spoiled sperm. نطفة ثم يا أيها الناس إن كنتم في ريب من البعث فإنا خلقناكم من this is, I'm sorry, في الحج. In المؤمنون, in Surah Al-Mu'minun, the believers, Allah speak about them, right? That's نطفة, then فعلقة, that zygote attached to the wall of the uterus, leached, attached, علقة, and then فخلقنا العلقة مضغة, then this علقة gets bigger. Up till now, we're not even 6 weeks, not 6 weeks pregnancy. Then the alaqa become mudgha, chewable, flesh. And this is usually about 4 and a few days more pregnancy. فَخَلَقْنَا الْمُضْغَةَ عِظَامًا. Then this mudgha becomes, and from it, created bones. And now we are about 8 weeks. ثُمَّ فكسونا العظام لحمة, then the bones are covered with muscles. Now 8 weeks, finished. Embryo, finished, then becomes the fetus. ثم, and the only time Allah in this verse, he said ثم, then خلقناه خلقا آخر فتبارك الله أحسن الخالقين. In this, after 8 weeks, the baby is formed. Now you can see hands, you can see arms, you can see legs, you can see head, you can see body, and for sure you see fetal heart. In fact, fetal heart is at 6 weeks. Where is the soul here? Is this 8 weeks baby is a living human being? That's where the debate comes in. Because when is the ruh, the soul, will be breathed into this? Most of the scholars, based on the hadith of Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam, of the 40 days, they say is 16 weeks when the soul is going to be breathed in. I need to know this as a Muslim. Why? Because it's not black and white. It depends on the time. So after 16 weeks, for sure, no different opinion, the soul has already breathed inside this new to about to be a human being. And here is the red line: 16 weeks after saving the life of the mother. In certain cases, if there is a congenital anomaly in the baby that will not be consistent with life, they may give a permission for abortion. And of course, there's a different complete scenario if this is a rape pregnancy. This is a completely different. The different opinion is about before. 6 weeks, 40 days, the first 40 days, where the scholars are very lenient, except Imam Malik. But the scholar says if there is a possibility of a hardship. And then as we go further till the 16 weeks, this hardship needs to be real, realistic, and it is really hardship. Some scholars will tell you the woman feels, I have a young boy, 1 year old, and now I am pregnant. This may cause a difficulty on me. Scholars differ. Some will tell you yes, and some will tell you no. What do we need to learn? Number one, there's stages. Number two, 16 weeks is the red line. Less than 6 weeks or 40 days is the lenient. The debate is in here, in between. In general, life is sacred. And if I leave that 8 weeks baby, 8 weeks fetus, and we do not abort, the possibility that this will continue to become a living human being is about 85%, because spontaneous abortion in medicine is about 15% in every pregnancy. So I need to think as a woman and as a physician, because I counsel women, I see it, Muslim and non-Muslim. And when I counsel a non-Muslim, I don't bring my Islamic background right away. I talk to her as a patient. And of course, I bring also the sanctity of life. So for us as Muslims, we have to be balanced, look at what Allah told us, and we should not be this way or that way. Rather, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to do. I just summarized it. I don't want to take a lot of the time because we agreed each of us will speak about 15 minutes. So we leave for you all the questions. But again, I'm going to end up by, if I have said anything right, it's from Allah only. If I said anything wrong, it's from me, my ignorance, the impact of shaitan only. I seek refuge in Allah that I say something and I don't practice it. And I will ask again and remind our beautiful viewers, mashallah, we have a good number of them, that let us put always the lens of Allah. As if some of you, if you know me, I always use this. Always when you talk, when you make decision, when you give your opinion, make sure you see it through Allah's lens, not my nafs or yours or other people. جزاكم الله خيرا. May Allah reward you. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه تسليما كثيرا.
Barakallahu fiki, jazakumullah khair, mashallah, Sheikha Haifaa. Thank you for that enlightening presentation. And I really love the way that Sheikha framed the discussion. You know, I know opinions, feelings are strong. I know that, again, as a country, we're polarized. I know that for a lot of young folks who might be kind of leaning towards progressive viewpoints in this issue, there are some conservative stances by scholars on social media and what have you. And we have to make sure that we go back to the fundamentals and the basics here. We go back to that foundation for all of us as practicing Muslims, and that foundation is what? The guidance in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. So I really appreciate that. Again, this is the beauty of the Sharia. Literally, Sharia means what? It means that source of life-giving water. And I'm so happy that we can have this conversation tonight. Now, it is my great pleasure and honor to bring Dr. Hassan Lachheb to the microphone. So Sheikh Hassan, before Sheikh Hassan begins, again, you all know I don't read out bios, I speak from the heart. And, one of the things I do at Tayseer, the title that I have officially is Women's Scholar in Residence. And I will say this, for all the sisters that are saying, well, we don't have male supporters and allies, and our mashayikh don't understand, I want all the ladies to know, all the sisters to know that the work that I do at Tayseer would not be possible without the support of Sheikh Hassan Lachheb, who is my teacher and mentor. And I'm delighted to have him here tonight for this conversation, because we need to understand these issues also impact men as well. and we want to learn from Sheikh Hassan as well, his perspective on this critical topic. So Sheikh Hassan, welcome. We are so honored to have you with us. Let me mention real fast, everybody, Sheikh Hassan has again the best of both worlds. He studied under Mashayikh in Morocco at Dar al-Hadith al-Hassaniyah, and he has a doctorate from the University of Indiana at Bloomington. Welcome, Sheikh Hassan Lachheb. Thank you so much.
جزاكم الله كل خير أستاذ زينب. I really appreciate من الله تعالى وجهي. بسم الله الحمد لله وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على مولانا رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما. My deep regard and thanks are to Dr. Haifaa and to Ustaz Zaynab for organizing this platform for all of us to share some of what we think about, and the whole country is thinking about this right now. And it's a great opportunity to share what we need to share about it, but at the same time to hear what the community is saying about it, and to just gauge where the public sentiment of this within the Muslim is. So, على بركة الله بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Celebrate or to celebrate or to cry for Roe v. and Wade. From my side, I'm not celebrating or crying. Those who are celebrating are the people that I disagree with. Those who are crying are the people that I fundamentally disagree with. So the idea that those who are celebrating, and a lot of Muslims are celebrating with the conservatives, and I see the hypocrisy of the conservatives in here, because if you really care about life, let's do something about gun control. The same people who are up in arms about Roe v. and Wade, and they want to abolish it, and they are against abortion and all of that. Most of them are against any laws to organize the utilization of guns. Now, mind you, that every single day right now, every single week, we're having children killed in schools. The same people are against any serious reform of the judiciary system. The people are dying and being killed systematically in the minorities being killed systematically in the jails and all of that. So yes, there is a win for them, but it's not a moral win. It is not a moral win. It's a political win, but it's not a moral win, because they don't have the moral background. Those are, and I mean also the religious right. The religious right, they're lost. They may have won a political battle, but they are losing the moral argument for sure, regarding this topic and many other topics. So if they're really worried about life, let's see what they're going to do with the children who is going to be. What are they doing with their health? They are against a healthcare option for the children, a universal healthcare option that will solve the issues of a lot of poor and destitute people. Most of the states that the Republican are taking care of have dismal healthcare options. That's for sure. For the women as well, are for the children, and so on and so forth. So if you are really really care about life, really care about, what about the other areas? So the hypocrisy is flagrant in here, and it's extremely clear to everybody. And the other side, I can be happy with. I can be crying with the liberals, because how could I cry for people who are for more than 900,000 abortions that happen on a daily basis, that happen every single year in America? I mean, without discrimination. So this idea in here, I know that a lot of these abortions are done because of health issues and so on and so forth, but at the same time, the sanctity of life and the care for the values, the values of the values of the marriage and the values of the relationship that are foundational to the making of society have been eroded by a religious laicism, by a very, very strong religious secularism. So the idea in here is that I am celebrating, or I'm neither celebrating nor I'm crying. The other thing is that nobody takes the opinion of the Muslims in any public issue, no whatsoever. Our voice, it doesn't matter. So people are saying, oh, the imams are saying this, or the imam are saying that. Nobody took our opinion in this regard. Nobody cared for our opinion in this regard. We're doing this because we are because we are impacted by it, for sure, but because we want to make sure that our Muslim community is educated about it. And we know what Allah Ta'ala says about it. And we know what are the boundaries of our religions about it. So we can adhere to them. So we can represent the Prophet ﷺ in the best way. There is no solution to the quagmire of the modern men, including the abortion and including the gender issues, except that we adhere to the rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that is clear, that is unmuddied by the liberal quote-unquote universal values. So I just had to mention that. It is extremely important. Liberalism doesn't want us to have an identity. Liberalism doesn't, whether you agree with us completely or we destroy you, or you're not, or you're against us, and so on. And that type of militarism, that type of militarism in the matters of ideas is scary from the liberal side as well. So we don't have an impact, and nobody takes our opinion, no whatsoever. So this is an internal discussion for all of us to learn and to be educated. The other important introduction that I wanted to talk about is that we understand this issue of abortion. This is something that the scholar has spoken about long time ago. It's not a new thing. The greatest scholars have spoken about this. You find it in the books of fiqh all over, in all the madahib. Modern scholars, helped by doctors and people who are doing research in the medical field, had been issuing fatwas about this since the beginning of the 20th century. So there is plenty of literature regarding abortion. This is not a new thing. For us to do some ijtihad, there is all the cases and all the scenarios that had to do with abortion are all enveloped and circled and surrounded by the ahkam shar'iyya, by the shara'i rulings. The only thing that we need to find ourselves doing is to ask ourselves, what is our foundation? What is the platform that we start from to judge the rightness, to judge the right from the wrong? Is it the universal liberal values? Is it conservatism? Or is it the Quran and Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ as it was traditionally analyzed and understood and synthesized by the generations of the scholars and the madahib and the tradition? What is the question to this answer? The answer to this question in here can define what is the way we're going to take regarding this. So in matters of fiqh, there are 3 ahadith that will organize this. I'm not talking about the ahadith of al-azl. I'm not talking about the ahadith of before the drop of before the sperms get into the womb of the. I'm not talking about those ahadith. Ahadith al-azl. There are plenty of ahadith about al-azl that are extremely strong about not even doing azl. Right? I'm not getting into that. I'm talking about the hadith that organized the issue of abortion that all the scholars stem from, or all the opinions stem from these 3 hadiths. The first one is hadith rawah Imam Bukhari and Muslim. Sheikh Haifaa, Dr. Haifaa had mentioned it. Sheikh Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala anhu, where the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said that the person will be collected or gathered in the womb of his mother 40 days as a nutfa, and then from nutfa to alaqa, and then يكون مضغة مثل ذلك. So 40 days. ثم يرسل إليه الملك, and then the angel will be sent to the person to the baby or to the fetus after the 120 days to blow the soul in him or in her, right? And then the hadith continues. So it mentions clearly the 120 hadith. So 40 days, and then the angel comes in and then blows the soul, and then the second opinion, the second hadith is hadith rawah Imam Muslim, الحديث من حديث سيدنا حذيفة بن أسيد رضي الله عنه, حديث حذيفة بن أسيد الغفاري رضي الله عنه, one of the great Sahaba. He was from the people who gave allegiance to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Al-Hudaybiyah and so on. So very well-known Sahabi. He lived in the Kufa and he died in there. He said, سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول إذا مر بالنطفة 42 ليلة, when after the drop of the semen or the sperm get into the womb, 42 days. 42 days. So it remains in there 42 days. All the developments happen 42 nights. then Allah Ta'ala will send an angel, and then He will fashion it. So the fetus will be fashioned, start taking shape, and then we'll create, and then we'll fashion its hearing, and its sight, and its skin, and its flesh, and its bones, right? And then Allah, and then He says, "Ay Rabbi adhakarun am untha," and then He said, it decided about the gender and so on and so forth. But this hadith clearly states 42 days, 42 nights, right? And then we come to the opinions that comes from this hadith. The third hadith rawah Imam Bukhari and Muslim, min tariq Sayyidina Abu Hurairah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, that two ladies from the tribe of Bani Hudayl fought together. One of them hit the other one with a rock. The other one was pregnant. She killed her and killed the baby inside. The Prophet ﷺ said that she has to free a slave for the baby who has been killed. The Prophet ﷺ gave full agency to the person, to the baby who was still in the womb of his mother. So from these ahadith, and with the cases that happened in the time of the scholars were different and varied on this issue on madhabi lines. So the Shafi'i, for example, the Shafi'i will go, except Ibn Ghazali rahmatullahi ta'ala. Ghazali rahmatullahi has a very strict opinion regarding this. Ghazali believes that the moment the sperm touch the egg and there is a possibility of life, he talks about possibility of life, rahmatullahi ta'ala, وَتَسْتَعِدُّ لِقَبُولِ الْحَيَاةِ. This is his, and it's planning to, and it's being ready or prepared to receive life. It is haram to make the abortion, which means that it is haram to make an abortion from every state, every stage, every moment. But that's not the Shafi'i madhab. The Shafi'i madhab rahmatullahi ta'ala alayh is that summarized in Ibn Hajar rahmatullahi ta'ala alayh, mentioned this في تحمة المحتاج, قال والحرمة تبدأ من بداءة الأخذ بالتخلق. Is that, he says, أي بعد 40 يوما أو بعد 40 أو 42 يوما كما مر مسندا في صحيح مسلم. He says رحمة الله عليه that hurma of abortion starts from the beginning of the fashioning of the fetus. The embryo start taking shape, start becoming a fetus. Once it's become a fetus, before the 120 days. This is the opinion of Imam Shafi'i. This is the opinion of the majority of the school of the Shafi'i madhab, is that the 40 days, the 42 days, 42 nights, then the hurma begins. Now, there are details in this that are so. Imam Subki rahmatullahi ta'ala alayhi, for example, is okay with abortion before the 42 nights if the pregnancy happens out of zina, out of fornication, with no restrictions and with no conditions. He says, rahmatullahi alayhi, Imam Subki rahmatullahi ta'ala, one of the greatest peaks and mountains of ilm in the Shafi'i madhab and in the ummah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said that before the 42 nights, one can do abortion for relationship that are illicit relationship, from pregnancy that comes from the illicit relationship. Now, going to the Imam to the Hanafis rahmatullahi ta'ala alayh, there is a very misconception in here that says that there's a misconception that the Hanafi do 120. They go with 120 days. Before 120 days, it is okay to do abortion before the 120 days, which is not true. There is a lot of nuance within the Hanafi madhab, right? It is a lot of nuance within the Hanafi madhab. So the Hanafi madhab, for example, the Hanafi madhab, and I have summaries of quotes in here. The Hanafi madhab goes. There is a most of them goes with the takhalluq as well, 42 nights. Most of the Hanafis go with the beginning of the shape of the fetus taking shape, and before that, it is makruh to make a abortion, and after that it is haram, and that hurma keeps on climbing and going higher and higher until the 120 days. After the 120 days, there is no way, even if the baby will come out with some defects, it's haram to make an abortion. And I'm going to say a few words about that later on. So the Malikis are the strictest in here, The Malikis are the strictest, and the Hanabila أنه يحرم إسقاطه بعد مرور 220 يوما على بالإلحاد. That it is haram, very strong haram, to make any abortion or to drop the baby after 120 days of pregnancy. And this is the period in which the soul is being blown into the being of the fetus. Now, there are a lot of details regarding this. I'm not want to bother you with that. The Malikis are the most extreme, the most tight. I wouldn't say extreme, but they are tight in this. That the moment the rahim gets into, the moment the mani gets into the rahim, even before 40 days, it is haram to do any abortion. And then this harma becomes even higher when إذا نفخت فيه الروح حرم إجماعا. And ابن المنذر رحمة الله تعالى عليه in كتاب الإجماع, he mentioned the ijma' that there is no, Ibn al-Mundhir mentioned that there is an ijma' that no abortion should happen after 120 days. Regardless, there is one case for it, and it is the case of the health of the women that is endangered. The scholars are given conditions for that should be conditions for that from the doctors, testifying that the actual health of the woman is in danger. And then, so what is all of this for? Because the moment the baby becomes, if we take with the 42 nights, the moment the fetus becomes shaped, it has agency. And that agency is protected by, this is not the baby of the woman, this is the property of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not the property of the woman. At that moment, it is the rulings of Allah ta'ala that are, if you're killing a person if you do that. And there are so many ahkam that the ummah, that the scholars had talked about regarding if the woman or anybody if a woman does abortion, or she's forced to do abortion, or somebody had made her by hitting her, so the abortion, what are the ramifications and the penances and so on that go through. That's very detailed in the fiqh Islamic. So this is not a new thing for us. This is a very downtrodden path that is surrounded by tremendous amount of ijtihad, tremendous amount of flexibility, tremendous amount of understanding. There's tremendous amount of realism. It's not emotions, and it's not ideals that are completely far away from the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That are realistic. He understands the people. He understands what they're going through. They even talked about the person who cannot handle financially and so on and so forth, and there is burden for them, and so they even talked about that, right? So this idea that that the liberal views are new and they are inviting, and they give agency to the woman completely. What about the agency of the baby? Who are to decide that life starts when we want? Life starts when we want it to start, not when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us it started. Right? So going with the most liberal one, which is 120 days, before that, if there are reasons for it, one can consider. Before that, one can consider. I definitely, looking at all the adillah, look at all the opinions, one should not dare to go through that path after the 40 days, the 42 days of pregnancy. The Prophet, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, told us in the Quran about people who kill their children because of financial issues. وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَوْلَادَكُمْ خَشْيَةَ إِمْلَاقٍ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked to us about rebuking people who are rebuking people. وَكَذَلِكَ زَيَّنَ الْكَثِيرُ مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ قَتْلَ أَوْلَادِهِمْ شُرَكَاؤُهُمْ لِيُرْدُوهُم وَلِيَلْبِسُوا عَلَيْهِمْ دِينَهُم وَلَوْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ مَا فَعَلُوا in Surah An'am. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us about those that had been misled by their gods and by their deities and by their doctrines, and they beautified for them the killing of their children. So the idea in here is to be sure, inshallah, that our salvation doesn't lie with the universal values of liberalism or with the conservatism. It lies with following the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, following the very clear guidelines that are this issue has theological underpinning and has and has fiqh underpinning and realism and societal ramifications. So the Sharia takes care of all of that. If you look at all the ahkam of the, and I have my critique of the ahkam, I have my critique of some issues of fiqh and so on and so forth, and I have some critique of my issues, some issues related to women fiqh in our tradition, but not this one. Not this one. This one is clear cut and is extremely understanding, extremely. ألا يعلم من خلق وهو اللطيف الخبير. It's extremely understanding and extremely realist. Last thing I wanted to say, and I want to end up with this, inshallah, is that a lot of us are tying up the hukm of tying up the issue of abortion with all the social issues that mire or that affect the women in this country or in many other countries. And a lot of people are saying, unless you find solution to all of these babies and all you find solution to all of these women, all you find solution, financial solution, and so on and so forth, we shouldn't talk about this. I think that there is a moment where our feminism, there's a moment where our sisters and our brothers should think about this in a very, should think about this not in a reactionary way. My dear brothers and my dear sisters, and especially to my sisters, feminism and the principles of feminism are the experience with European people with with patriarchy in the West, in America, and in the West in general. And that yardstick should not be the yardstick with which we measure every other tradition and every other experience. We don't have to create a feminism that is clashing, that is reactionary. Who are going to be standing with you in all the legitimate issues that you fight for if it's not for the men, right? So you keep on alienating the mashayikh, keep on alienating and going hard on them in ways that I didn't see anybody who said any unreasonable thing, and going hard on them and insulting them that they're backward and that they don't understand the women and so on and so forth. Then make them understand the women. Make them understand, right? And we're here to listen, and we want to listen. But this idea that every topic that consider women, we have to clash and we have to fight and we have to exclude anybody else other than women to talk about it, it becomes ridiculous. And to create an environment instead of umran, akhawi, instead of brotherhood and sisterhood, with which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us to build our prophetic communities, we create environments that doesn't create environment animosity that leads nowhere. It creates even more animosities. It creates even more problems and issues for our children and for ourselves. So my sincere plea to whoever is addressing this issue is that the respect that is necessary, but at the same time to really question ourselves, what is our platform that we start from? What is the platform? Because if we start from the premise that we are Muslims and we are adherents to Allah Ta'ala's hukm and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then we have to follow usul fiqh are clear in here. The hadith are here, and the checklist to deduce the ahkam from this hadith are well known. So the idea in here that we need some liberal values in here to complement, there is nothing to complement in here. This is a downtrodden path that has been cleared. And we ask Allah Ta'ala to put barakah in what we say. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us tawfiq, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us understanding. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the ability to affect the public discourse on this, because there will be time where the voice of the Muslims is going to be needed to solve a lot of these issues. There's a lot of distrust all over the places, and I think that this is a very right moment for the Muslim to come up with their opinion that is comprehensive, that touch the social issues and the personal issues and the economic issues at the same time. And you won't find that except in the Sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ask Allah ta'ala to make us good custodians of that. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.
Audience members, as you've noted, and again, I want to invite everybody just to kind of think and reflect for a moment that this is a conversation that requires a lot of nuance. And I really appreciate what Sheikh Hassan conveyed in terms of this discussion around women and what we call reproductive rights, say reproductive autonomy, also the right to the child, that this is not something that's been introduced recently into Islam through liberal discourse, but in fact our ulama have considered these, have studied this topic and issued fatwa and informed ijtihad centuries ago on the basis of Quranic guidance and the guidance of the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. So very important to note that. And again, I want everyone to understand this is just a conversation that we are having tonight with an informed, compassionate perspective to kind of allow us to bring our best selves to these conversations, because at the end of the day, we would require a lot more time to really get into the nuances of the jurisprudence or fiqh around this important subject. So at this time, inshallah ta'ala, I would like to do a couple things. One, a lot of questions are coming in. I'm noting them down, and I want to turn some of those questions over to our speakers, beginning with Sheikha Haifaa. But I also wanted to note something, because there were some comments coming in, along the lines of, well, I don't really want to know the fiqh of this, but what do we do about how women are being impacted, and then so on? How are we supporting those women? That was one comment that came in. And, I really want to emphasize this particular point, especially to our female audience members, that all of us are coming from a place of deep compassion and empathy. We are not dismissing the very real impact of the overturning of this decision on women that are seeking out this type of care. We do understand. But what we are inviting, again, our assumption here, dear brothers and sisters, is that this is a Muslim audience, that we cherish the Quran and the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ. We cherish these ideals in the Sharia. So the assumption that we're all bringing to this is that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for example, is telling us in the Quran and not to kill your children for fear of want, and this is a very important ayah that I want to mention here, and this is chapter 17 of Isra, verse 31, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَوْلَادَكُمْ خَشْيَةَ إِمْلَاقٍ نَحْنُ نَرْزُقُهُمْ وَإِيَّاكُمْ. I mean, this is really important. Do not kill your children for fear of want. We will provide. Allah is using the royal we. نَحْنُ نَرْزُقُكُمْ نَرْزُقُهُمْ وَإِيَّاكُمْ. It's not leaving out the parents and just focusing on the children, but here Allah Ta'ala is revealing, we will provide for them and for you. Inna qatlahum kana khut'an kabira, right? Inna qatlahum kana khut'an kabira. That verily their killing is ever a great sin. So the reason why I mention this ayah, my dear brothers and dear sisters, it's not to dismiss the feelings of anybody here, but I want to really note that throughout the Quran, when birth is being presented, when pregnancy is being presented, it's being presented as what? As a sign of Allah Ta'ala's majestic creative power. Every time we get the example of a prophet or messenger and they're elderly and Allah Ta'ala is blessing them with children, how is that Quranic story being presented? Right? And this is very apropos given that this is the Hijjah and the legacy of Sayyidina Ibrahim and Sarah and Hajar alayhim as-salam. So it's very important, my dear audience members, that we not lose sight of the principles being presented in the divine revelation here. So I just really wanted to note that. And with that, inshallah ta'ala, I now want to go to questions. So we are getting some very important questions in here, and I'm kind of consolidating them. So this first question is for Dr. Haifaa. And the question here is, let's see, make sure I'm going to the right question. Yes. If after that 16-week mark, if the mother finds out that the baby has complications such as Down syndrome or other birth defects, is it still haram at that time to have an abortion?
Very good question. By the way, there's a lot of good questions, and some questions are realistic. It's not about fiqh or Islamic. It's about realistic living in certain states where everything is going to change. So let me address this one, and inshallah we'll address the other one. Now, congenital anomaly in the fetus, it is not one size fits all. So what does that mean? When you said Down syndrome, what do you mean? Which kind of Down syndrome? Let's look and learn this. There is congenital anomalies in the babies where it is inconsistent with life. The baby will not make it. We know that. I mean, there is clear cut, you do genetic testing, and the chromosomes comes in. And I've just recently had this case not even a year ago. In these cases, that is not, we call it not compatible with life. After 16 weeks or even before 16 weeks, this is where you bring the couple. This is not a decision one person does it. This is a decision you bring the mother, You bring the father. If they want to bring other member of the family, that's their choice. We sit, we normally do counseling. You all need to know one thing: abortion, terminating a pregnancy, it's a very hard decision to make. Don't you think this is an easy decision, regardless of the reason? This is very emotionally, it emotionally impacts the woman. I mean, I have seen it. I have in certain cases allowed it. And it, even when I am there, it is very moving. So if the congenital anomaly is inconsistent with life at all, and I had this case, I actually counseled the couple and I said, it's absolutely your choice. You know, you want to carry it, the baby will not make it. That's how it is, especially when it's confirmed chromosomal anomalies. I had two patients, one opted to terminate and one patient opted to continue. Another question was in there about the anencephaly. It's called the neural tube defect, the extreme one. All these that are non-viable, or the baby will not make it, as we say in the common language, it's absolutely their choice. Then this is their mother choice, absolutely. Now you come to Down syndrome. Down syndrome is a huge spectrum. There's Down syndromes, which is very mild, and they live. So not every Down syndrome. Other congenital anomalies in general, if they are compatible with life, that's where the parents needs to know that this is compatible with life. It comes with al-Hurmaniya. If it's after 16 weeks, now you are coming into a living human being. Yes, it is abnormal, but it is compatible with life. So in general, it is not allowed. But unless it is mother's life, severe mental illness. Well, you have to look into this also. Mental illness, severe mental illness, that the patient may be even worse with now having. I had a case where it is repeated congenital anomalies. It's all viable, but it's repeated. That has a huge impact on the mother. And now I worry about her well being and her life. So I want to make sure to all the listeners, these are not black and white cases. You can't say that's it. Down syndrome, terminate. No, Down syndrome. Every case, as I said in my talk, لكل مقام مقال. Every case has a situation. We sometimes had to, especially when I worked in Jeddah in a Muslim country, this was a huge debate. We had it with the fuqaha, we had Muslim physicians, myself, and we had actually a religious committee in the hospital to decide on this. But in general, non-compatible with life, that's allowed. Compatible with life, it depends what kind of an anomaly, and that will be each case by each case.
Thank you. Jazakum khair, Shaykha Haifaa. I really appreciate it. Again, everyone, this is not black and white. Look at the nuance. And again, this requires not just sort of the understanding from the, as Shaykha is saying, not just the medical and even the nuance within the medical viewpoints, but also having that sort of, I would imagine, you have medical experts, religious experts, people that are experts in kind of mental health, and you're bringing all these components together. I'm going to send this question, inshallah, thank you, Shaykh Haifaa, to Shaykh Hassan. And this question, because, Shaykh Hassan, I cited the ayah from the surah, the Isra, but someone asked, well, are there no accommodations for people in severe financial hardship to go forward with an abortion?
Yeah, Bismillah, alhamdulillah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yeah, there are scholars who allowed abortion if it happens within the first 42 nights, it's even without any reason, just like fear of poverty or the situation, or they have a lot of kids and it was not it was planned and so on and so forth. They allowed that. And they allowed it with karaha tanzihiyya. They allowed it with some reprehensibility. That word exists, right? So the idea in here is that it's not that there is no option. There is an option, but the idea in here is when it becomes so common that people are just like having that card in their pockets. I'm just going to do an abortion in here. That's not how it goes. So the Sharia is to deter people from thinking that this is something that is just right there, to think about things and to think about the ramifications. And so now, what about incest? What about incest and what about rape? So mind you that, again, this is because it's self-reported, right? Yeah, so because it's self-reported, we have 1% of all the abortions that happened in all that 900,000 abortions that happened in 2022 or 2021. We're talking about 1% that are 0 point something in incest and 0.7 or so in the when it comes to rape. Now, we can talk about that most of the rapes are not reported and all of that and so, but these are the stats that we have. So it considers a very small number of the abortions that happen in this country, right? So now, what is the Sharia says about that? Again, I said, so there is a spectrum in here. So the spectrum that starts from the most lenient is the one that any abortion that happened before 129 days is makruh, but it's not haram. That's an opinion. Some people say it's 42 nights. If it's before 22 nights, it is still makruh, but it's not haram. And of course, there are others who say that it's from the moment the semen touch the get into the womb and rest in there for even hours. It is you cannot have or days you cannot have an abortion. So the idea in here is that it's there. One can utilize this in this very extreme cases that does not consist of the majority of the cases of abortion. Abortion is this social issue and this political issue, and this very fraught with emotions and all of that and so, not because of incest and not because of rape. It's because of the hundreds of thousands that happen in every year that are selective. And it's not because of the health of the mother. Those are issues that the Sharia have dealt with, right? And even in the case of, so now, after the 42 nights, or after the 1 in 20 nights, there is no way that you'll find an opinion within the Sharia that allows somebody to do an abortion, to allow abortion, whether it's incest and whether it's incest or deformation of the fetus or for rape. There is an ijma' that you shouldn't touch at that moment. That's it. But especially if you know that the fetus is going to come out as blind or cannot hear or cannot walk, you cannot change the pregnancy at that time. There is an ijma' on that. This is Sheikh Qaradawi saying that. Ibn Baz made it. They have two spectrums of the fiqh of modern scholars saying that there is an ijma' on that. So that's the idea in here. But before that, before the 120 days or before the 42 days, that's putting that I'm lenient towards. Is the opinion of the 42 days, when the fetus starts taking shape. Before that, if there is a valid reason that is social or economic or health-wise, I mean by social, incest. I mean by economic, the situation is and so on, or health, one can do an abortion at that time. And it would not be considered just like, we're doing a mubah in here. It would be considered that we're doing something that is extreme to remedy a situation that is extreme.
Thank you, Sheikh Hassan. Jazakumullah khaira. So this is arguably the most difficult question that's come in, just because this particular question, in terms of now we're talking about non-consensual. So Sheikh Hassan has answered that question. And Sheikh, I also wanted to get your perspective.
I need everyone to think of another option, which has never been discussed. What about adoption? What about adoption in Islam? أنا وكافل اليتيم. I always say this to the woman who she's thinking of miscarriage. I was thinking of abortion. I'm not talking about health. I'm not talking about a non-viable congenital anomaly, all the others. One of the things that I discuss with the woman, this is a decision the woman has to do it with her husband. And again, we're talking about a Muslim couple. And I always say, listen, in front of Allah, Allah is going to ask me, what did you say? But Allah will ask you what you decide. And I will support the decision as long as the decision goes with the Sharia. If the decision doesn't go with the Sharia, then I feel very uncomfortable doing it. But also think of adoption. So, for example, the question came up about the fear of lack of means. I can't. I have 7 children, and then here I am. I got pregnant again, right? Even before the 40 days, which majority of the scholars are lenient about it, except Al-Maliki. Even that, I was like, okay, why don't you give the baby for adoption? Think of that one. So this is one option we have always to entertain. We need to take in consideration case, as I said, case by case. There was another point I just forgot to know. What was the other point in the question, Ya Sheikh Zainab?
Yes. So Sheikh Haifaa, the question that I wanted to ask was, of course, is there allowance in case of financial need or hardship to perform an abortion? And the other question that Sheikh Hassan addressed that I wanted to address as well. So if we have a victim of rape or incest, is there no allowance for them after 120 days to pursue an abortion?
Of course, Sheikh Hassan is way more knowledgeable. But from my reading and my understanding and my teaching is rape specifically, non-consensual, is absolutely different story, because that's the woman has no hand in it. And again, where I trained, they actually allowed it even after the 120. But again, not categorically, every case by case, but if it's proven rape, because rape by itself is an extreme trauma to that woman. I mean, again, as a woman, number one, carrying that baby, keep reminding her of the incident. There will be a lot of emotional impact on that case. So we cannot just say absolutely not. Again, every case is by the case. We keep reminding her of the hurma of the life, but also I have to think of her as a woman. This is why I kept saying these cases is you can't answer yes and no most of the time. The answer is not yes and no, except after 220 for lenient reasons. But if it's a major issue, you really have to take the case by case. You have to sit down, you have to talk to this woman, you have to talk to that couple and decide. But for rape, where I was trained, it was actually open. 24 weeks becomes a big issue because now it's not an abortion anymore, it's actually a delivery. 24 weeks, 6 months, now it becomes, even in medicine, it's not abortion anymore. It's a delivery. The baby will come alive. Absolutely. If the woman delivers at 24 weeks, preterm labor, the baby is alive. You take the baby and put it in the NICU, in the special care. So the tough one is 120, which is 16 weeks to 24 weeks, where the baby is actually alive, but most probably will not make it when he or she comes out. In the rape case, again, where I trained actually, and they actually allowed it, but again, I will say it one more time, it's case by case. In the matter of abortion, we cannot be black and white, except after 16 weeks to save the life of the mother. You have to look into it. But for rape, they allowed less than the way I trained. If you know Sheikh Hassan, there is very famous. He's a physician and he's a faqih. He actually was on the Majma' al-Fiqh. Dr. Al-Baz. He actually wrote a book about it, and he was in our hospital where I trained. May Allah give him health. He's getting sick a little bit, and he analyzed it very easily. He said less than 40 or 42 days. The ulama, except the Maliki, are very lenient. They're very lenient. Sometimes they say it's just emotional impact on the woman. Between the 40 days, as you go up in the pregnancy, the cause has to be, the reason has to be really serious. You get to the 120 days, there is no more reason other than the mother's life, or in case of rape, again, in that school of thought. But as we go up, 7 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks, you really have to go. The reason has to be really, really valid and not gray. I don't feel well. I don't think. It has to be a valid reason outside the mother's life. So again, it's not a very clear answer to these ones.
All right, thank you, Sheikh Haifaa. And Sheikh Hassan, if you wanted to respond, and I think we have time probably for one more question, then I'm going to ask you to wrap it up, inshallah ta'ala. There's a nasiha type question that came in that I'm going to conclude with. But Sheikh Hassan, do you want to respond to that? As everyone can see, this is very complex.
No, I mean, again, I do agree 100%. I do agree 100% with Dr. Haifaa that this has to be taken case by case rather than just like giving a blanket fatwa for everybody. A person who has an issue would go to a person that they trust in their deen, and they trust in their religion, and they trust in their taqwa, and they trust in their knowledge, and they lay out the options that the Sharia has for them, right? To my knowledge, Allah Ta'ala Alam, I did not even the issue of zina and the issue of illicit relationships, and also for rape, had been mentioned in the books of fiqh, had been mentioned in books of fiqh earlier, and the modern one as well. So they talks about it, right? So if I didn't see anybody, according to my knowledge, and I'd love to hear more, inshallah, I'd love to learn. After 120 days, it becomes difficult to I haven't seen anybody allowing after 120 days to allow the abortion after that, unless in extreme cases in which the health of the woman is in jeopardy, and so on and so forth. So before that, I didn't see, but I'm willing to learn, and I'm willing to see what Dr. Abbas had done. This is to say that the moment that لا تزر وازرة وزر أخرى, the baby is the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, becomes his own, has their own integrity at that moment. That's the difference we have in it. And I know that socially and emotionally it becomes difficult to say, I'm carrying the burden of this, traumatic experience that I have gone through, and I completely sympathize, and I can never put myself in situations I can never understand what a woman goes through when that happens. I can never understand. I can never claim to understand, right? At the same time, what I can say is that this is the delineations and demarcations of the Sharia. Here are the limits. There are limits from this side, and there are limits from this side. That's all I can say. But then to each one, the choices that they make, because according to how much they know their situation better than anybody, and if the Sharia is laid out to them, I think there is plenty of options for them before they go to something that is illicit. There's plenty of choices, and I understand that even with zina, and people make mistakes, and people got into weaknesses, and we wanted to open for them roads to recovery, and roads to repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and roads to carrying something from that history that pull people down and allow people not to break relationship with society, break relationship with their community, break relationship with family, is something that it has tremendous amount of ramifications. So my take is that the Sharia allowed enough leeway for any remedy of things like that.
All right. Thank you, Sheikh Hassan. Jazakumullah khaira. If I might, I want to ask Sheikh Haifaa about this, and Sheikh Hassan, I agree. I think that the rahmah that's in the Sharia, the contingencies that exist, I think those are things that we have to be able to investigate. Of course, the larger context is that, as someone noted, what if, let's assume it's before that, it's during that window of potential permissibility, and the woman is in a state where they're outlawing abortions. Of course, that raises other questions. But I wanted to ask Sheikha this question about how dire, let's now talk about more of medical necessity. How dire does the situation have to be, Sheikha, to actually allow the woman to move forward with the abortion? I.e., does the mother have to be herself in danger of dying, or are we talking about severe repercussions to her health? Because maybe that wasn't quite clear.
What's the stage?
The person actually did not ask, Sheikha, so if you could...
As Sheikh Hassan, just may Allah reward him, the 120, the 4 months, after the 4 months, there's very little room. And the good news is these days, most commonly, the woman can find out she's pregnant before that. I mean, most women by 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, usually you're pregnant. So before the 120 days, the starting point is, when I counsel the woman, is I wouldn't say don't do it, because I can't say this to her, but I will say think about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Think about the hurmah of the life. Think that it is not easily allowed. Why do you want to do it? You really have to counsel her. Why do you want to do it? Right? So if the baby is abnormal, we cover that. What does mentally mean? If she has suicidal attempts and she is going to kill herself, that's absolutely, because that goes with saving the life. But if I'm going to be emotionally unstable, I don't think I can handle it, that's something we can easily work it out. This is like any other anxiety issues the woman goes through. So it's not an excuse, that I will put it this way. It is not an excuse to jump to abortion right away, unless the life of the woman is in danger. There is always other things we have to do less than 120. Before the 40 is very lenient, or 42. But I'm talking about the gray zone. Like the Sheikh Hassan said, he's from the opinion that after I didn't want to give my own opinion, ya Sheikh Hassan, but I agree with you. I'm actually with that opinion. When the woman comes to me, I said, I have to give you all, but I personally believe, khalas, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had a reason where He made you find out that you are pregnant after that time. So don't take it lightly. Don't take it lightly unless your life in danger or the possibility of she killing herself. Otherwise, if she is mentally ill, there's a treatment. If she is medically ill, there's a treatment. Can we try? Can we see? If I am not sure, I always get opinion of other physicians, or high-risk pregnancy, I get the physician opinion of other scholars. Again, it's not a one-person decision. There's two lives here. There's two human beings. You always have to think of it. And one of the comments was there, what about the child right? I don't like using these words. But yes, you have to think of the baby also. وإذا الموءودة سئلت بأي ذنب قتلت. Allah said this in Surah Al-Takwir. The girl will be asked, why did you kill me? And so this is also Islam, the two points. So the gray zone between the 40 or 42 days and the 160, case by case, have to look into it. Is there other option, valid option, that will bring relief to the woman without the abortion? I want to use this term. Most of the time, the answer is yes. Most of the time.
Thank you, Sheikha. Inshallah, by way of wrapping up, there is, so I do want to acknowledge there's a sister who's posted quite a few questions about what is basically the predicament a Muslim woman might find herself in if she needs an abortion. She's in a red state where, trigger laws are going into effect, which are basically going to outlaw abortion probably from conception. So that, I would actually respectfully say to my dear sister, that's more of a legal matter. So unless our speakers feel very strongly about tackling red states versus blue states, I think that's probably a separate discussion we would have to have.
And I just want to say one thing, because it's the same sister who put about women living in red state. I lived, studied, practiced with the same way you see me, in a red state for 20 years, right? I studied in Missouri, practiced in Missouri, everything in Missouri, which is absolutely a red state. We mean Republican state, conservative. We don't know yet the consequences of this. We don't know yet. So let's not jump to things, and let's see what's going to happen, right? And I have to put our Islamic belief. I always believe Allah will give us a way out. If this is a Muslim woman who really needs this for a reason that pleases Allah, Allah will not let her down. I always say this. Always. We have to always have this belief, Muslim woman. Don't just listen to what others says. We have our own belief, our yaqeen. Allah will protect us. And there's a question about the 10-year-old who's pregnant in Ohio. I don't know if you've heard about this. This is very sad. I have delivered a 12-year-old. She's carried 12 years. She carried twins, 12 years in residency. This was a sad situation. So but again, as Sheikh Hassan, may Allah reward you, these are very rare. These are very rare cases. And then there's always exceptions to the rule. I don't know what they will do. Maybe they will again raise it up to the Supreme Court. We don't know what, but we cannot generalize on a certain unlikely cases. In all my career, I have seen 12-year-old one time. So you know what I'm saying is, like, let's talk about the most common and the rare cases. To every case there is a statement.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheikh Haifaa. Sheikh Hassan, if you wanted to quickly comment, because I have one final question I'm going to ask for the both of you. I want to go to Sheikh Hassan and then Sheikh Haifaa for this question coming in from, I think, one of our students at Tayseer. But yes, Sheikh Hassan, do you want to comment?
Yeah, Jazakallah khair. Really appreciate it, Dr. Haifaa. I really appreciate, again, having somebody who's practicing the crux of the matter and seeing it on a daily basis and affecting it on on women is extremely important. Having that point of view is essential for all of us to put in context, because a lot of times the issue of abortion is a theoretical for many, for all the women, for all the men, or most of them, is a theoretical thing. We read it in the books, but this is the lives of people. So a lot of people are asking us, like, okay, so you're talking about, you know, limiting the things to 120 and all of that, and so what are you doing for all of these women that are going to be they're going to be, you know, coming to a system that is already fragile, social net system that is extremely fragile? What do you do with those? You know, as Muslims, we don't discriminate between whoever knocks our door for help. We always help. We go out of our way to help our sisters who are, you know, widowed sisters who may not have gone through abortion or anything. The Muslim community has always been generous, has always been open, has always been never put conditions. You know, and I'm pretty sure this is not just in Knoxville. This is in every community in America. There are orphanages that are coming out in America right now. ICNA and Islamic Relief. There's plenty of places for women who have been going through hardship, whether it's women who are going through domestic abuse or so on and so forth. The idea that we should not talk about this until we have all the foundation, the social foundation and political foundation to carry the burden of Roe and Wade is ridiculous. We do our best. We do our best with whatever the social ramification of this is going to be. We will do our best to help our sisters or whoever knock our doors in need. We will do our best. We'll go out of our way to help in every single way. We'll never let anybody come into our doors go away, especially a young woman coming with a baby. That we will never be except welcoming and helping in every single way. And by the way, we have many cases that happened in the last 6 years, 7 years, 8 years that I've been here in Knoxville, in which the community intervened without asking questions, without discrimination, and without prejudgments. That a lot of liberals expected the Muslim to have. Absolutely not. Beautiful examples, alhamdulillah. So, but with that, we want to make sure that we are allowed to practice our Sharia. We're allowed to really to at least adhere to it, even theoretically. This idea that we all have to adhere to universal value, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We can't. I'm really sorry. I have two daughters, and I would love them to come out in an environment that respects them, respect their opinions, they respect their religious views, and respect their adherences. And that's the America we know. That's the America we'd love to be in.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you, Sheikh Hassan. We're very grateful to have you here with us tonight. And Sheikh Haifaa, so for both Sheikh Haifaa and Sheikh Hassan, the question that came in, and this would be a huge, so we have to really kind of condense this down as much as you can. The question was, is there an Islamic solution to the abortion issue? But I want to kind of make that more broad. And what I'd like to conclude, the note I want to conclude on is, when you are dealing with a society that really for the last, 50 years has become accustomed to this idea that a woman's reproductive autonomy is enshrined in the Constitution, i.e., if you look at the vast majority of cases, that women can engage in relationships and decide to terminate the pregnancy that results from that relationship. There is a larger worldview behind that, one that I believe is not supported by the Sharia, in the sense that we have responsibility for our actions. We have responsibilities, obviously, to make sure that intimate activity happens within certain parameters. So I know this is a huge question, but given that this is purported Judeo-Christian society, however, vast numbers of people are engaging in out-of-wedlock relationships, and we have the ensuing pregnancies. Is there any nasiha that we as a community can bring to bear on this, given the teachings that we have that actually empower human beings to live lives of modesty, chastity, and restraint? That's really, I think that piece is really missing from the discussion. Is this just pie in the sky, dear Sheikh Hassan and dear Sheikh Haifaa, or can we offer a solution here? And I want to go to Sheikh Hassan and Sheikh Haifaa, inshallah, to conclude.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah. My take on this is that, you know, we don't impact the moral choices of, you know, America is a pluralistic society, and Muslims are a minority in it, and there is no way that our, well, again, there's hope, inshallah, but there's always the idea that we are going to impose our will on people is just something that is ridiculous. Here is what I think we should understand. The morality of the Islamic morality is a morality that is intertwined with each other. You cannot separate it. You cannot. It's not a separated. No, it is very intertwined. The choices that we make on a daily basis regarding our relationships, regarding our relationship with our parents, with our community, and so all of that is intertwined with the issue of abortion. Abortion is not a floating issue on the sea of emptiness. No, it's very related to the personal choices, related to personal morality, related to the ethics of the group, related to a lot of things that Islam holds very dear. In a Muslim society, most of these issues will not be a problem. Why? Because people will be self-governing. There will be an extremely important factor that doesn't exist in a secular society, which is al-wazi' ad-dini, which is the fear and awe of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, haya from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that haya from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prevents us from doing that which is wrong. And the wrong is predefined by that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had talked about in the Quran. So when we say, that God had prohibited us from engaging in zina or in fornication and adultery, and how much of I don't want to reduce abortion to only that. That's not what I'm doing. But let's face it, most of it happens in that way. So when we don't choose, when we don't have any say on the moral choices of the American society, then we have to deal with the ramifications of the plural choices, right? Of the choices of the many, and that's what it is. In the Muslim community, we have to. The only thing that we have to, as a gift to the American society, is to increase this awareness, is increase this morality that is not individualistic, a morality that is completely universal, that the choices that I make can have an impact on my village on a daily basis. That I'm not making choices that only impact me. It will impact everybody. So the idea in here is that we have a choice, we have a chance in here. And I'm going to say this for whatever it's worth, and I hope it's not offending anybody. For many years right now, the failure of Christianity and Judaism is not in, with all the political wings. I think that the failure is a moral failure. It is a really serious moral failure. And when we have to come in and readdress this issue, this is the gift to the American society. This is where the Muslim voice has to come out. We have to speak more about the morality of the collective. We have to speak more on what against consumerism, against materialism, against all of these issues, against individualism in every single way, against this extremely subjugating materialism, right? We have to speak about these issues more and give a good example for community that lives its values that lives its values in its fullest and lives its values in coherence with itself, and then we can see the impact. The impact of that will be less abortions that are selective or that are by choice or that are out of adultery, less adultery. The concept of boyfriend and girlfriend, so many Christian communities have failed to deal with it, and then they ceded to it, and so on and so forth. So all of these issues, we can make a say. There is a historical moment for the Muslims in America to make a dent and to have a voice. And I think we shine to adopt the liberal values wholeheartedly and wholesale, doing a disservice to the American community, because we're depriving them. We're depriving them of solution to all of these issues. Right? Alhamdulillah.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you, Sheikh Hassan and Sheikha Haifaa. So you can see I ended on this note, subhanAllah. So Sheikha, I would love to hear your thoughts, because again, my question is, are these Islamic values impossible to achieve? We have people living them every day. So I'd love you to speak to that.
I actually يعني أتعبت من بعدك يا شيخ حسن. As we say, he made my job is very hard, but I will share a real incident happened yesterday with me, actually. The real estate agent I was talking to, he was actually Christian, because he was showing me that he's a Catholic practicing, because he was taking his children to the retreat place, which interestingly, we do Muslims use the same place for Muslim retreat. So of course this debate came in. Absolutely. And we all as Muslims really need to be ready. And I always say to people, don't be shy of being a Muslim. Don't. It's beautiful. It's a skin, Allah gave it to me. And he keeps telling us, and I'm not bragging, I'm not being arrogant. It's beautiful. So I said, listen, Islam for me, and I'm speaking as a physician, is a deen of prevention. It's not a deen of treatment. And he said, what do you mean? I said, Islam prevents put huge obstacles to all the means that will lead to the woman get pregnant, and then we will talk about the abortion. He said, what do you mean? I said, listen, do you know what is the punishment for the intimate relationship outside marriage in Islam for both men and women? And he said, what is it? I said, listen, it depends. She is virgin, he is virgin, she is virgin, or they are not. And I gave him, and I said, imagine if this was practiced one time, how many illegal abortions or how many illegal pregnancies you will see. So we need to look at our deen as a deen of prevention. Lower your gaze. There is a limit to intermingle. How do we intermingle? La khalwa. I talked with him about the being alone with a man, and I talked about Me Too movement. And I said, look what Me Too movement brought. Brought what Islam taught us years ago, is that the relationship between a man and a woman, they are not related, needs to be regulated by the person himself, not by the government or by the company. Me as my taqwa to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I fully agree with Sheikh Hassan. Talk about Islam, my beautiful audience, men and women. It's a beautiful deen. And before you talk about it, you practice it. You show it. Especially my beautiful sisters, if you wear your hijab, you are actually talking Muslim. Be nice, be beautiful, talk about it, spread the knowledge. You don't have to change people. Allah is the one who changed people. But I need to tell them the beauty that they are not seeing. And look at the time, and I said this to the man yesterday, I said, for 23 years in a whole society, can you believe it? There was very few cases of pregnancy outside marriage. This is our history. We just need to know it and love it and talk about it when the opportunity comes in. That's how I see it.
Thank you. Barakallahu feeki. Thank you, Sheikha. So, alhamdulillah, our program has now come to an end. I want to thank our esteemed scholars, Sheikh Dr. Hassan Lachheb and Sheikha Dr. Haifaa Younis. I am just so pleased to have this conversation. We could continue much longer. We want to respect our teachers' time. And to our audience members, we appreciate your questions and your comments. We didn't have a chance to really talk about our program, so if I might very briefly just highlight the wonderful work being done at Tayseer Seminary that has a one-year immersive in-person Islamic studies program and an Arabic intensive starting soon. And Sheikha Haifaa, who is pioneering an intensive immersive Islamic study experience that is virtual, accessible wherever you have an internet connection, devoted to ladies. So please forgive me, my dear teachers, for not letting you speak more about your programs, because there's so much that I wanted to share regarding that.
They can check the website and they can see it. Exactly.
Yes. So Jannah Institute and Tayseer Seminary.
I'll take 1 minute. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. I studied in a woman-only institute, and I found this is to be amazing. And alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, Allah made us do that. All the fadl, all the grace goes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we have a program called Year of Knowledge, which alhamdulillah Sheikh Zaynab will be our guest teacher next year for the whole year, where we titled it What Every Muslim Woman Should Know. The goal is not to graduate scholars. The goal is to graduate women, mothers of the future, know the deen well, so they can teach the children, and then we can have a generations that they know the beauty of this deen. We teach 5 subjects, the basics ones: Creed, Aqidah, the Quran, and this year we're doing Ulum al-Quran, and then the Hadith, and then Fiqh, which Fiqh al-Ibadat, the basics, and then we do Tazkiyah, purification of the soul. Alhamdulillah, we had 110 students. They will graduate next week, walillah alhamd, and we will start next year in September, year 2, and then we will open another class for year 1. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it for his sake, Ya Rabbi Ameen. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward every woman, every person who had put any small or big effort in this program, Ya Rabbi Ameen. Jazakumullah khair.
Ameen. Thank you, Shaykha Haifaa. I appreciate you. And Sheikh Hassan, if you're still with us, if you're able to join us to speak a little bit about, because we did have that worked into the program, if you wanted to talk a little bit about the programs happening at Tayseer, inshallah. And then if I could get our wonderful moderator behind the scenes, if, alhamdulillah, we have links to JannahInstitute.com, and for Tayseer is TayseerSeminary.org. And again, there is an Arabic intensive starting soon. It's in person with a potential virtual component. And we have a 1-year immersive program in Islamic studies that we have started back in 2015. And that is an in-person experience in beautiful East Tennessee. So Sheikh Hassan is back. If you can, inshallah, just tell us something about that program at Tayseer. Thank you so much.
I think the Tayseer Seminary had started 8 years ago. It's a 1-year program in which you come and you're immersed in the study. We call it a deep introduction to the Islamic studies. But at the same time, the most important valuable part of Tayseer, in addition to being immersed in all of the traditional subjects and disciplines and so on, is a very spiritual environment. At the end of the day, if we inject all the information in the minds of people, if we don't transform them spiritually and connect them deeply and intimately and experientially to Allah Ta'ala and to His Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and with a good understanding to the tradition, I don't think we're having an impact on them. So the spiritual experience is what makes Tayseer a place of suhbah, of companionship, a place of love of Allah Ta'ala, a place where people learn how to worship Allah Ta'ala properly, the qiyam, there is spiritual retreats, there is a spiritual, there is a beautiful companionship day to day with the teachers. At the same time, there is always contextualization of the information. There is no information that is taught in here that a person would say, what do I need that for? We take the tradition to be our lens with which we read our future, with the way we make choices on a daily basis. So the tradition in every aspect of it becomes extremely relevant, becomes extremely practical, becomes extremely necessary. And that's what Tayseer is about. Also, I can't say more about the environment of love and mahabbah and companionship that is alhamdulillah very elevating and very elevated and very, very purifying and very sobering. And we have students alhamdulillah that come to us from different ways of life, from different ages, and so on. You could see them together, working together, worshiping together, crying together, laughing together, like a beautiful family. So I invite everybody to check us out. If you can come to visit us, that's great. If you can, then make dua for us, inshallah, bi'idhnillah. Make dua for Jannah Institute, that Allah Ta'ala put barakah in it, that Allah Ta'ala elevate it and make it a source of guidance and goodness and a lighthouse of khair, inshallah, in America. It'd be a place where our daughters and our sisters and our wives and our mothers will go and find a bosom of rahmah and khair and love and connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ya arhamar rahim. So ask Allah Ta'ala success for everybody who works for the study of Allah Ta'ala.
Thank you, Jazakumullah khair. I'm so excited. Subhanallah, that we were able to bring these amazing scholars together for this important conversation. Very quickly, in the chat, there is a link to a Telegram community where Jannah Institute has prepared a nice PDF booklet containing dua from the Quran and Sunnah. So make sure you check that out. And wonderful programming from both Jannah and Tayseer. Check out the Instagram pages. Sheikh Haifaa's talks on the importance of the Hijjah. Sheikh Hassan has a new series. It's on our Tayseer Instagram. And a special thank you to our admins behind the scenes working across multiple time zones who brought this all together. So I want to bid everybody a wonderful evening, and I will conclude with a brief dua. And please, please, please make dua for our wonderful scholars who devoted their time and came and taught us tonight. May Allah Ta'ala bless and protect and reward both of you and your loved ones. Ameen ya arhamar rahimin. And thank you so much. And to our audience, thank you for joining us. Inshallah, we hope to see you again soon. And we will conclude with a brief dua. Subhanallah wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the days of the Hijjah to bless us with acceptance, elevated niyyat, forgive our sins, allow us to observe the day of the fasting and Yom Arafah in particular. And Jazakumullah khairah, everybody.
السلام عليكم.